The truth is, we are all extremely busy, but we all know someone who seems to be getting stuff done. They have extensively long to-do lists. Maybe they're a single parent or a parent of many children. They work, they go to school, or they take care of their spouse, or they cook, they clean, and they have a lot of responsibilities, but no matter what, it seems like they're just getting stuff done. And then there we are, and we're wondering why we can't even check off one thing on our to-do list. I recently shared a video about the difference between productivity and busyness. And in that video, I stated busyness is being occupied while productivity is actually producing something. And the reason that some people fare well when it comes to productivity is because they have decided to focus on being productive instead of focusing on being busy. In today's video, I'm going to share not only my productivity journey and what I learned, but my favorite productivity hacks that you can start implementing into your life right away. Let's get started. So a few short years ago, as I was going through my divorce process, I was in school full-time for my doctorate. I was working a full-time job. I was working a part-time job and taking care of 2 young children. So the word overwhelmed was like my next door neighbor. It was like taking over my life. And so at that point, I didn't have any choice but to figure out how I was going to increase productivity. How could I possibly be a mom, taking care of, cooking and cleaning and the financial aspect of the home, plus working 2 jobs, plus, going through school full time. It was extremely overwhelming. So I started to implement small little changes within my life that would in turn help me to become more productive. In the process of doing this, I was also in a small group at my church where I was a table leader for about 6 to 8 people, depending upon the week, how many people would come. And I would always get the same questions. How are you handling that? How do you make time to exercise? How did you make time to cook? How did you make time to get your kids to school on time? How did you make time to write a paper or a dissertation? And I would always give little practical strategies and tips and advice. And the women loved it. They'd come back the next week and they'd say, oh, I tried that rule you told me about, or I tried that new thing you told me about. And so in turn, I was like, I should really write a book. Now, it's funny how it began because my idea to write this book was simply to share and publish within my church community so that women in the church community that maybe weren't at my table within the group or other women that weren't involved in this small group could benefit from the knowledge that I was sharing. So through the process of writing my very first book, Quick Tips for Busy Women, I started to learn what it was that I wanted to share in different productivity hacks and quick tips that women could implement in their life and change their life. And through the process of writing this book, God took a really, really small dream and magnified it. He took it and made it really big and allowed me to publish. So not only was I impacting women locally at my church, I was impacting women in my state, in my country, and more importantly, other countries with my story. And so the more hands my book got into, the more people would start reaching out for me. This book was life-changing. Oh my gosh, I never thought that I could, balance this and this. Thank you so much for encouraging me and telling me that this is possible, especially women that were in the middle of crazy life transitions and trying to, change their life and make sense of the big change that was taking place. And so from there, I really started supporting women with productivity. And it's funny because I wouldn't always necessarily meet with women one-on-one through my life coaching practice about productivity. I would meet with them about writing a book or about healing or about, other topics. But in the process, I would find that their productivity style was non-existent, that they were just being occupied with things, running their kids to and from sports and going to work and cleaning and cooking and working and all of these things, but they weren't being productive. That's when I decided that I wanted to really start sharing more and more of my skills and my hacks and things like that. So that's exactly what I'm going to share with you guys today. If you are struggling for any reason with productivity, fear not. This is something that you can overcome. You can stop being busy and you can replace it with productivity. And more importantly, it can change your life and your success. Increasing your productivity allows you to get what you want faster, and it increases the success you have with your goals. When you don't have productivity and you're just busy, you're missing the mark and you're likely not going to accomplish many of the things that you need to do. So let's talk about it. My very first productivity hack is my 2-minute rule. You may ask, what is that? Super simple, but if any task is going to take you under 2 minutes, do it right away. And the reason that this is important is because a lot of times I see people have multiple 2-minute tasks and they pile on top of each other. So before, when you had a 2-minute task, it now turns into a 30-minute task or a 60-minute task or a 5-hour task. And so doing it while it's small makes it more manageable, and it gets it off of your to-do list. It gets it off of the list for tomorrow or something that you need to do later down the line. So an example of this would be if you go to the mailbox, on your way home from work, you walk to your mailbox and you walk in your front door. Instead of throwing the mail in a pile and walking away and doing that all throughout the week, and then on Sunday you're checking and going through all your mail, what if you went through your mail right then and there? In 2 minutes, you went through your mail and you categorized it. This is a pile of things that can be thrown away. This is a pile of things that I need to reference. This is a pile of things that need to be filed away. Whatever. So now there's an organization system. You throw away the mail that you don't need, so your place isn't cluttered or chaotic, and you're holding on to the mail that's most important. You could even take it a step further and say, okay, well, it will take me 2 minutes to log on and pay this electric bill. So I'll log on and pay that now. So now that's off of my to-do list. It's not filling my mind with unnecessary information or things that I have to remember or an unnecessary to-do list. But instead, I'm able to get this done and it's out of my way. That's my 2-minute rule. The second rule that I have for my productivity hacks is to clear your space. This is so important. The reason this is important is because research says that our environment actually can affect our mindset, or it's reflective of our mindset. And so if your environment is super cluttered and chaotic and frustrating and overwhelming, your brain is going to reflect that. So you're not going to be able to be productive because you're overwhelmed, you're frustrated, you're distracted, it's chaos in your brain, and you can't hone in and focus on that task. And so it's important that you clear your environment, whether that's your work desk, whether that's your dining room table or your living room. You want to have an environment where you can work effectively and work while you're focusing. For me, my workspace in my office is totally clear. There's a desk, there's a printer, there's a computer, there's a ring light, there's a couch, and there's books. But I don't have paper down there. I don't have old shoes. I don't have old coats or clothes or anything like that. It's just a simple space that I can go to focus, and there's nothing that I have to worry about. Think about it. Like, how many times have you been at your desk and you're like, oh, I need to clean this, or I need to move this, or you see that bill over there and you're stressing about how you're going to be able to pay that bill, but you're trying to focus on the task at hand. You want to have a clear space to really be able to focus. The third productivity hack is a cleaning hack. And this kind of doesn't have anything to do with what you think it might have to do with, but I hate ironing. Absolutely hate ironing. And so if I can find any way that I don't have to iron on a regular basis, I will pretty much do it. And so one of the productivity hacks that I have incorporated into my life that has been extremely beneficial is I take my clothes out of the dryer right away. And the reason that this is important is because if you take your clothes out of the dryer while they're still warm, they're still fresh, one, they smell really good, but two, they're warm and so they're not wrinkled yet. And so you can fold them accordingly or you can hang them up. But this reduces the likelihood of you having to use an iron later. Ironing takes a lot of time. Now, if you like creases, that's a little different. But if ironing takes a lot of energy and effort, whereas we all have to fold our clothes eventually. We eventually put our clothes where we should. And so why not do it right away where it reduces what we're going to have to do later down the line? Now, for me, when I was working, I timed my wash and dry cycle effectively. So I would put my, clothes in the washer before leaving for work. I would come home, switch them over to the dryer, start cooking dinner or, doing homework with my children. Soon as that dryer went off, I was folding them and putting them away. And I've made that a regular practice, not only for me, but for my girls as well, so that we really don't iron. The only time I iron is if I pull out like a dress for church and it was something I haven't worn in 2 years and was in the back of my closet being wrinkled or folded up, or, a blouse or something like that. But, my Monday through Saturday, pretty much, I'm not ironing at all. And that saves a lot of time that I can focus on something totally different. The fourth productivity hack is probably something you guys won't like as busy people, but stop multitasking. This was the hardest one for me because I had allowed myself to believe that multitasking was actually helping me be more productive. But research says that there's no such thing as multitasking. You're actually switching from one task to the next, task to the next. It's called context switching. And so basically, if you're sending a text message, you're watching TV and you're cooking dinner. So you're cooking dinner, you're listening to the TV and sending a message. What you're really doing is sending the message, then cooking the dinner, then watching the TV or listening to the TV. And so you're context switching between the three things or whatever things you're trying to multitask amongst, which actually takes your focus off of the important task. And research even says that with context switching, it can take up to 25 minutes to switch back into what you need to focus on, therefore wasting valuable time. So I'll give you an example. A lot of times when I started writing my very first book, I would work, when I got home from work, I'd work on writing. So I'd sit at the kitchen table and I'd be, writing my book or typing my book, and I'd be cooking something, on the stove. And so I'd cook something on the stove and come back to write my book. And then my kids would come down and, Mom, can I have a glass of water? Can I have some, lemonade or whatever? And so I'd get up and get them lemonade. But what I came to see was every time I'd get up to go to the stove to stir something, or get up and get them a glass of lemonade and then come back to my book, you would think that I'd be able to jump back in to where I was at. But what was truly happening was it was taking me more time to process. So I would say, like, where did I leave off? What did I want to say? What did I want to fix? Was I at this page? Should I edit this? And it would take me so long to context switch back into my original task. And so that's when I realized that multitasking wasn't helping me get ahead. So I decided to make some adjustments, and I decided to start writing in the morning. So I woke up an hour earlier before my girls were awake, and I would focus on writing. And what I came to see, because at 5 a.m. nobody's texting, calling, or emailing, I could be hyper focused on my book during that time. And because I didn't have distractions, I was getting more done in 1 hour than I would get in 4 hours done with my children and trying to cook and, clean and watch over the house and everything else. So do not fall under the impression that multitasking is helping you get ahead. Multitasking is probably the very thing getting in the way of your productivity. So instead, choose to batch your time. So choose to say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes hyper focused on this one task. And then I'll spend 30 minutes hyper focused on this task. And then I'll spend an hour on this task, or whatever that looks like for you. This is extremely important, like at work, because it's easy to, want to send an email while your coworker is talking to you. But that's ultimately not going to have a good impact on the outcome. What you'll see when you batch your tasks and you're hyper-focused is you'll get more done in less time, and the results of it will be more positive. Try it. It'll change your life. Finally, the last productivity hack that I'll share with you today is to start before you need to. So a lot of times we get in our own way and we self-sabotage through procrastination because we have believed that we have more time than we think, or maybe we don't think the project is important, or maybe we think that it's going to be able to be done in less time than we realize it'll actually take. But we often get in our way through self-sabotage by waiting too late. One of the key things that I'll do is I will start before I'm 100% ready. Or start before I really need to. So for example, I wanted to start a podcast for a while, but I know that in podcasting, it's important to be consistent. And I recognize that at that point in my life when I wanted to start it, my schedule was all over the place. And so what I decided to do was I started to pre-record episodes before I was ever going to release it, because I wanted to have, a couple of episodes that I could pull from and add and edit and put in wherever I needed to in case something came up that I was, overwhelmed or busy. So before starting, I had, up to 10 episodes recorded that I was able to add in as necessary. I started before I thought I needed to, so that when it was time for me to start, I was already ahead of where I needed to be. This is also a strategy that I've implemented with my daughters. So my oldest daughter had a project that was due in 2 weeks. I told her to change the date in her planner to a week ahead of time. So in her mind, she had a shorter amount of time to get the work done. And so she spent a week focusing on getting the project done. And then that next week, it wasn't a hassle. It wasn't something that she felt overwhelmed or that she needed to do. And more importantly, she could spend that next week making any last minute edits or adjustments that she needed. And what she came to see was that her project was one of the best projects that she submitted in class, because she wasn't rushing to do it. She wasn't procrastinating. Therefore, in turn, she was more productive. Time is a non-renewable resource. This is why we have to use it effectively and make it a priority to work in our favor, because it's something we'll never get back. I always seek moments and opportunities in my life where I can save moments of my time because it is that valuable. So let me ask you, how different would your life be if you committed to being more productive and less busy? Comment below and let me know. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Share if you know someone who could be blessed from these productivity hacks. And until next time, I'll chat with you guys later.